Conclusion. Influencer marketing is one of the most rewarding investments if you are trying to sell a product or service to a demographic that spends a good deal of time on the internet. And since we live in the 21st century, that is the biggest chunk of the population. If internet land was a country, it would be the biggest in the world, and as a marketer, that's the one you want to capture. You need to understand what social media influencers are all about. You need to know how they operate and where you fit in their scheme of things. You need to understand their values and see which one fits your brand the best. This takes research, effort, and planning. Once you have a list of influencers, it takes some more work to figure out who suits your product and the campaign you want to launch. You need to recognize the target audience and find the individual that has the most influence on their purchasing power. Once you get there, you need to negotiate a deal with the influencer. Be clear about the goals of the campaign. Write them down clearly and unambiguously in the contract. Keep the communication lines open and support your influencer in the vision they have, vis-a-vis the content they think will work on the demographic you want to conquer. And when the campaign comes to an end, make sure everyone is back to the drawing table to look at the results. Compare the final outcome to the goals set by both parties at the beginning of the campaign. Use quantifiable parameters to see if the collaboration worked. If you did it right, it would have worked. That's a sign that you should plan more campaigns with the same influencer, since you are now familiar with each other's rhythms. How to track and measure an influencer marketing campaign. This is the last leg of the adventure, and as you can tell, it comes after the campaign or collaboration comes to an end. You need a tangible way of measuring the success of this partnership, and this is how it's done. 1. Reach. This is the very first metric you want to look at. You need to start by looking at where your brand was before you launched the campaign and where the reach is at once the campaign has come to an end. The rise or drop in the reach tells you how far your message has traveled and how many buyers entered the fold. This can be calculated by looking into your KPIs. Start with the follower count of your influencer. While some are obviously other brands and a few bots, you will have a fair idea of the growth during this time period. For this reason, it's helpful if the influencer was working exclusively with your brand. It's not the best indicator, but it can give you an idea. You get a peek into the times your post showed up on your target audience's timelines by looking at the impressions. You can also look at the traffic the content is brought in from the influencer's profile, and it is an extremely reliable indicator of measuring reach. 2. Target audience growth. Then there is growth. It's one of the biggest factors in influencer marketing and otherwise too. Here, however, growth in a particular demographic is everything. You want to see if your sponsored content is hitting your target audience. Google Analytics will tell you the precise numbers. These numbers will also tell you if the influencer's brand messaging was on point. That's incredibly useful in measuring the success of the campaign. However, you must remember to look at these numbers 30 to 60 days after the campaign is started to make sure the numbers have steadied themselves. This is very true for sponsored posts, because while the sales start to come in after the first few days, potential customers check promo codes and affiliate links only after a few weeks, unless there is a time component to the offer. 3. Coupon codes and affiliate link. Speaking of discounts and affiliate links, these numbers are not only very easy to track, but are also a reliable way of measuring the results of the campaign. You learn which influencer has been effective in bringing paying customers back to your website. If you've used promo codes in your campaign, you will be able to track sales and also repeat purchases, which is also an added piece of information. You will also get insights like click-through rate, CTR, which is a terrific measure of the influencer's success in bringing customers to the fold. 7 things to avoid in a potential influencer campaign. A guide is never complete if you don't warn of the mistakes that are commonly made, even though they are easily avoidable. Here are 7 of them you should absolutely run from. 1. Not defining campaign goals and KPIs. If you don't define the goals clearly, you don't know what to compare the end results with. This rule applies to every kind of marketing, and the influencer market is no exception. In fact, this branch of marketing is a lot more organic and has room for a lot of creativity. But the basics must be in place so that the success of the creative experiments can also be measured. 2. Choosing unvetted influencers. When planning a campaign with an influencer, this is one of the first mistakes many brands make. You want to pick someone in your niche. But that's not the only factor, as we saw in the previous chapter. Picking a popular name from your niche is lazy work. You want someone who has an original voice that is a good fit for your brand. They must agree with your core values and hopefully like your vision and believe in your product too. You are essentially picking a brand ambassador. You want someone with a good track record and reputation in the industry. Why? Because you don't want your influencer to go rogue on you during or after the campaign. 3. Cold outreach. Contacting individuals you don't know is a process called cold calling. This practice has been around for a long time and is still actively used. This is the first step for many marketers, even when it comes to finding influencers. If you're one of those, bad news. This doesn't always fetch you the results you're hoping for. 4. Bad contracts. If you want to protect your brand from a failed influencer marketing campaign, draw an efficient contract. This is a document that has a record of all the things both parties agreed to. 5. Cheap promotion. Don't try to get more for less. This is not a case where offering inadequate compensation has any chance of a win for you. The only scenario where this might possibly work is if the brand is established and well recognized, but the influencer isn't. And in those cases, the collaboration is more likely to fail than succeed. 6. Stifling their creativity. Don't tell your influencer what kind of content must be created. That's their area of expertise. Plus, if it comes from your team, you might as well place a traditional ad. The idea behind using an influencer is to use their voice, which resonates with their followers. It keeps them authentic, which continues to maintain the trust they have with their audience. Trust that will transfer to your brand if you just let them do their thing. 7. Neglecting video content. Every branch of digital marketing must include a budget for video marketing. This is particularly applicable if you have a limited budget. Making videos is not always a cheap affair, and you must remember that original content is a lot better than curated stuff.